What if the same artificial intelligence that could help us cure cancer could also be used to create something we've never seen before? Not science fiction, not a movie, and not even a conspiracy theory. Scientists are already using artificial intelligence to design drugs, proteins, antibodies, and even viruses. And that's where the story gets complicated. Because AI isn't simply becoming better at answering questions, it's becoming better at designing things. Things made of molecules, things made of proteins, things that interact with living cells. And that creates one of the strangest technological situations humanity has ever encountered. The same technology could potentially help us discover treatments for diseases that have frustrated medicine for decades, while simultaneously creating biosecurity risks that the government and scientists are trying to understand right now. So today, we're going to separate the science fiction from the documented science. How exactly is AI being used to discover new medicines? Has AI already created a drug that works in humans? What happens when AI begins designing proteins instead of text? And perhaps most importantly, could the technology eventually be used to design biological threats? Because there are scientists who are openly warning about that possibility. And there are already experiments demonstrating pieces of the problem. But the truth is considerably more interesting than simply saying AI is going to create a deadly virus. The real story is about something much bigger. It's about the automation of biology. For most of modern medicine, discovering a new drug has been an incredibly difficult process. Scientists need to figure out what is going wrong inside a disease. They need to identify a biological target. Then, they need to find a molecule capable of interacting with that target. Then they have to determine whether that molecule actually does what they want it to do. And that's only the beginning. A promising molecule still has to survive laboratory testing, animal studies, manufacturing requirements, and a human clinical trial. Many potential drugs fail somewhere along that journey. The traditional process involves enormous amounts of experimentation. And biology is complicated. A human body isn't a machine with a handful of switches. It's an interconnected system involving genes, proteins, cells, organs, immune responses, metabolism, and environmental factors. Change one thing, and something else can change unexpectedly. This is one reason drug discovery is so difficult. But artificial intelligence offers scientists something they've never had before at this scale: the ability to search through enormous biological possibilities computationally. A 2025 review in Nature Medicine described AI being integrated throughout the drug development process, including identifying disease targets, generating molecules, predicting mechanisms, automating synthesis, assisting clinical trials, and monitoring medicines after approval. Instead of asking which molecule should we test next, scientists can increasingly ask, can a computer design a molecule that has the properties we want? That's a very different proposition. To understand why this works, we need to talk about proteins. Proteins are some of the most important machines inside living organisms. They perform countless functions, and their three-dimensional shapes are crucial for what they do. For decades, determining protein structures experimentally could be extraordinarily difficult. Then came AlphaFold. Developed by Google DeepMind, AlphaFold demonstrated that artificial intelligence could predict protein structures from amino acid sequences. The AlphaFold database eventually expanded to more than 200 million predicted protein structures. Then came AlphaFold 3, and the ambition became even greater. Instead of simply predicting the structure of an individual protein, AlphaFold 3 was designed to predict interactions among biological molecules, including proteins, DNA, RNA, and small molecules. That matters enormously for drug discovery, because drugs don't merely exist inside your body. They interact with biological targets. If you can model those interactions more effectively, you can potentially have a better starting point for designing a drug. AlphaFold became so significant that in 2024, Demis Hassabis and John Jumper received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry alongside David Baker, whose work focused on computational protein design. Think about what that means. Artificial intelligence went from recognizing patterns in data to helping scientists understand the physical structure of molecules that make life possible. And now researchers are taking the next step. They're asking AI to design molecules that don't already exist. Imagine scientists discover a protein involved in a disease. They want to block that protein. Traditionally, researchers might search through huge libraries of chemical compounds looking for something that binds to it. AI can approach the problem differently. It can generate candidate molecules computationally. Then those molecules can be evaluated. The promising ones can be synthesized and tested. The results can then be fed back into the development process, and the process can repeat, generate, test, learn, generate again. This is one of the reasons generative AI is so interesting to pharmaceutical researchers. It isn't just analyzing existing molecules. It can potentially explore chemical structures humans have never physically made. But there is an enormous caveat. A molecule looking good inside a computer isn't the same thing as a medicine working inside a human being, and that's where one particular drug becomes extremely important. In 2025, Nature Medicine published the results of a randomized phase 2A clinical trial involving a drug called rentosertib. The drug was formerly known as ISM001-055. It was developed by In Silico Medicine using generative AI. The target was idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, or IPF. IPF is a progressive lung disease in which scar tissue builds up in the lungs. And here's the extraordinary part. The researchers used generative AI not to simply optimize an existing drug, but to identify a potential disease target and generate a molecule against it. The target was TNIK. The resulting molecule became rentosertib. Then it went into human testing. The phase 2A trial enrolled 71 people. Participants received different doses of rentosertib or placebo over 12 weeks. The researchers reported that adverse event rates were similar across the treatment groups and placebo group. At the highest tested dose, the researchers observed an average increase in forced vital capacity of approximately 98 millimeters compared with a decrease of about 20 millimeters in the placebo group. The authors concluded that the results supported further investigation in larger and longer clinical trials. And Nature Medicine described the trial as a concrete milestone for bringing AI-enabled drug discovery into the clinic. But let's be precise. This is not a cure. It is not proof that AI has solved drug discovery. The drug remains investigational. The trial was relatively small and short, and the authors themselves noted that AI-discovered drugs had not yet demonstrated successful progression through phase 3 trials at the time of publication. But it is still a remarkable milestone, because for the first time, the argument isn't merely AI might someday design a drug. There is now a real example of an AI-driven discovery process producing a drug candidate that reached a randomized human clinical trial and showed preliminary signs of efficacy. This isn't just happening inside private laboratories. Regulators are already dealing with AI in medicine. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration says it has seen more than 500 submissions containing AI components between 2016 and 2023. Those submissions span different parts of medical product development. AI can appear in drug discovery, preclinical research, clinical research, manufacturing, and post-market safety surveillance. The FDA has also seen developing frameworks for evaluating whether AI models used in drug development are sufficiently credible for their intended purpose. And that's important because the question isn't simply, does AI work? The question is, how much should we trust it? If an AI model says a molecule is safe, how do we know? If it says a protein will behave a certain way, how do we verify that? If an AI system designs something entirely new, how do we determine what it will actually do? Those questions become even more important when we leave the world of medicine and enter biology. Here's where the story gets very uncomfortable. The same technology that can potentially design a beneficial protein can potentially design a harmful one. This is called a dual-use problem. A technology can have legitimate medical applications while also creating possibilities for misuse. Scientists have been warning about this specific problem. In 2025, researchers writing through NIST described concerns about AI-assisted protein design and biosecurity. They specifically investigated whether generative AI could be used to create synthetic versions of sequences of concern that might evade existing biological screening systems. The important part is what happened next. They didn't simply assume the worst, They experimentally tested the concept using safe biological proxies. Their results suggested that current AI protein design systems were not yet powerful enough to reliably rewrite a protein while simultaneously preserving its activity and evading screening. That's a crucial distinction. The risk was real enough to study, but the experiment did not demonstrate an easy pathway for creating a dangerous biological agent. And the researchers emphasized that validating AI-generated sequences requires substantial technical skills, time, and resources. So we have to resist two extremes. One extreme says AI can instantly create a biological weapon. That's not supported by the evidence. The other says there's nothing to worry about. That isn't supported either, because the capabilities are improving. In September of 2025, Nature reported something remarkable. Scientists had created what the publication described as the first AI-designed viruses. But there's an extremely important clarification to this. These weren't viruses designed to infect humans. They were bacteriophages, viruses that infect bacteria. Researchers used AI to generate novel viral genomes based on bacteriophage. They then synthesized candidate genomes and tested them. Some of the resulting phages could infect E. coli. Some combinations could kill bacterial strains. The research was particularly interesting because it demonstrated that AI could generate functional viral genomes rather than simply analyzing existing viruses. And there is a potentially beneficial reason to do this. Antibiotic resistance is one of medicine's major problems. If bacteria become resistant to antibiotics, researchers need other ways to kill them. Bacteriophages offer one potential approach because they naturally attack the bacteria. So the same technological capability that sounds frightening, AI-designed virus, was being explored for potentially therapeutic purpose, allegedly. And that is exactly what makes the issue so complicated. The technology itself isn't inherently good or evil, it's a capability. And capabilities have multiple uses. So what are the legitimate fears? There are several. First, AI could lower the expertise barrier. Biology has traditionally required years of specialized education, but increasingly capable AI systems can help people interpret scientific literature, analyze biological data, design experiments, and generate candidate molecules. That doesn't mean someone with a laptop can suddenly create a pandemic. Laboratories, equipment, materials, expertise, and experimental validation still matter. But reducing the amount of specialized knowledge required for some tasks could potentially expand the number of people capable of attempting sophisticated biological work. That is a legitimate concern. Second, AI could accelerate biological engineering. Imagine a researcher who previously needed months to explore a set of possibilities. An AI system might generate thousands of candidates computationally. The problem isn't necessarily that AI makes biology possible. Humans already know how to manipulate biology. The concern is that AI could make certain forms of biological design faster and more scalable. Thirdly, AI could discover things humans didn't expect. And this is where things get particularly interesting. If an AI system is optimizing biological properties, it may find solutions that humans didn't think to search for. That can be wonderful when you're looking for a drug, but potentially dangerous when the objective is harmful. Now take another step. Imagine an AI that doesn't merely answer a scientist's question. Imagine an AI that can read specific papers, search biological databases, from hypotheses, design experiments, send instructions to laboratory robots, analyze the results, and then design the next experiment. That concept is already being studied. A 2025 paper in Nature Communications examined the risks of what it calls AI scientists. Autonomous systems capable of performing scientific tasks ranging from computational analysis to physical laboratory experiments. This is where the future becomes particularly important, because an AI scientist could theoretically create a feedback loop. Hypothesis, experiment, result, new hypothesis, again and again and again. Humans wouldn't necessarily be manually directing every step. The machine could increasingly participate in the discovery loop itself. That's potentially incredible for medicine, but it also raises a question. What happens when the objective isn't find a treatment for cancer? What happens when the objective is something harmful? That is the core dual use concern. And if you think about it, COVID-19, AI, A is the first letter of the alphabet, I is the ninth, 19, COVID-19 How do we know this hasn't happened already? Okay, it makes too much sense to ignore. I'm just throwing it out there. Use your own discernment. This isn't merely a concern raised by outside critics. AI companies themselves are studying it. Anthropic, for example, has publicly discussed biological risks from advanced AI. The company describes AI as a dual-use technology and has implemented additional safeguards for certain chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear-related requests. Anthropic specifically activated what it called AI Safety Level 3 protections for Claude Opus 4, including measures focused on preventing assistance with certain CBRN weapons development tasks. Anthropic and researchers have called for safeguards to be built directly into AI biotechnology systems. A 2025 NIST publication argued for built-in biosecurity safeguards in generative AI tools used for biotechnology. The authors specifically discussed potential misuse involving viral properties, toxins, and genome editing. Their argument was essentially, don't wait until something goes wrong, build safety mechanisms into the technology while the technology is being developed. That's a very different approach from waiting for a disaster and then reacting. And this creates an extraordinary paradox. AI could potentially help us predict how viruses evolve. Researchers are already using AI to study the evolution of viruses, including SARS-CoV-2 and influenza. The goal is to anticipate changes that could affect vaccines and antiviral treatments. That could help us prepare for pandemics. But the underlying capability predicting biological changes is also part of why people worry about misuse. The same knowledge can potentially serve defense and offense. The same protein design technology can potentially produce a therapeutic molecule or raise questions about designing harmful biological molecules. The same AI that can help engineers understand a virus can potentially make biological engineering more accessible. That's the dual-use problem, and there may be no way to completely eliminate it. Now let's stop for one moment, because this is where the internet discussions often jump from. Scientists are using AI to design biological molecules, to AI can create a super virus tomorrow. That's not what the evidence says. Biology is still incredibly difficult. AI-generated designs can fail. A predicted protein structure doesn't guarantee biological function. A computationally promising molecule can fail in laboratory testing. A molecule can work in cells but fail in animals. A drug can work in animals and fail in humans. And even the AI-designed bacteriophage research required physical synthesis and laboratory testing. In other words, AI hasn't removed biology from the equation. It has accelerated parts of the process. That's an enormous difference, and it is exactly why the most serious researchers aren't simply predicting apocalypse. They're asking a more practical question. How do we make sure the benefits arrive faster than the risks? Imagine a future drug development system. A patient has a rare genetic disease. Their genome is analyzed. AI identifies a mutation. It models the protein affected by that mutation. It identifies a potential therapeutic mechanism. It generates candidate molecules. A robotic laboratory tests those candidates. The AI analyzes the results. It redesigns the molecule. The laboratory tests it again. Eventually, researchers identify a candidate worth moving into clinical development. Pieces of that pipeline already exist. The challenge is connecting them safely and proving that they actually improve patient outcomes. And the possibilities go beyond conventional drugs. AI is being used in protein design, antibody design, drug discovery, clinical trial optimization, biomarker discovery, medical imaging, genome analysis, and biological engineering. The more these systems improve, the more the boundary between computer science and biology starts to disappear, and that's a scary fucking thing. And maybe that's the most important part of this entire story. The future isn't really about artificial intelligence versus humanity. It's about what happens when artificial intelligence becomes extremely good at manipulating the machinery of life. For most of human history, biology was something we discovered. Then we learned how to modify it. Then we learned how to engineer it. And now we're developing machines that can help us design it. That could lead to medicines for diseases that we've struggled with for generations. It could help us discover new antibiotics. It could help us generate better proteins. It could help us understand cancer. It could potentially accelerate treatments for rare diseases, and it could make scientific discovery dramatically faster. But the same capability creates a responsibility, because when the cost of exploring biological possibilities fails, the number of people and systems capable of exploring them rises. And that's why scientists, regulators, AI companies, and governments are increasingly talking about biosecurity alongside innovation. Not because an AI has already created a human pandemic, not because AI has already produced a universal cure, but because the underlying capability is advancing and responsible scientists are looking at where the trajectory could lead. Somebody who wants it bad enough for the wrong use is gonna get it. And I think you know who that someone is. So here's where we are now. Artificial intelligence can now help scientists predict protein structures. It can help identify biological targets. It can generate new drug candidates. It has helped produce a drug candidate that reached a phase 2 human trial. It can design new proteins. And researchers have demonstrated that AI can generate functional bacteriophage genomes. Those are facts. But here's the other side. There are legitimate concerns that increasingly powerful AI systems could eventually make certain forms of biological engineering easier to misuse. Researchers are actively testing those risks. Regulators are developing frameworks. AI companies are adding safeguards. And scientists are calling for biosecurity to be built into these systems from the beginning. So maybe the most important question isn't, will AI cure disease? And it isn't, will AI destroy humanity? Both are too simplistic of a question. The real question is, can humanity learn to control a technology that is becoming increasingly capable of designing the machinery of life? Because if we get that right, AI could become one of the most powerful tools medicine has ever had. But if we get it wrong, the same technology that allows us to engineer biology for our benefit creates risks we aren't prepared to handle. And that is the part of the AI revolution that deserves our attention. Not because we should be afraid, but because for the first time, we're building machines that aren't just learning about life. They're beginning to design it, and we're only at the beginning stages. So I'm gonna wrap it up. I love you guys. Stay safe. Remember, don't drink that. Use your discernment for everything.